For 70 years, the Vikings came the same way. A few ships out of the dawn, a monastery burning, and then gone. Back across the sea before the king could raise a sword. Raiders. You endured them like a storm. In the autumn of 865, the ships came again. But these did not leave. They dragged their keels up the beach and asked the locals for horses. Not tribute. Horses. You do not need horses to raid a coastline. You need horses to ride inland, to take a country and keep it. The monks who wrote it down had no word for what had arrived, so they invented one. Not a raiding party, a micel hæþen, a Great Heathen Army. Last time we went looking for Ragnar Lothbrok and found a father who may never have existed at all. But his sons were no legend. They were written down, by name, by the monks who watched them wade ashore. And they had come for two things: a father to avenge and a kingdom to take. Understand how strange this was. For 3 generations, Viking meant hit and run. The raid on Lindisfarne in 793 was the nightmare everyone remembered. But it lasted a single day. The Norse came for silver and slaves and left the land itself alone. Kingdoms survived because the sea always took the raiders home. This army did not go home. It landed in East Anglia and simply stayed the winter. The local king, Edmund, did the sensible thing. He bought them off with horses and peace and prayed they would move on. They moved on, but not away, because this was not one warband. The sagas name its leaders as the sons of Ragnar, Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan, Ubba, and behind them rode not a crew, but a coalition. Hundreds of ships' worth of men who had come to the same conclusion at the same time. England was not a place to rob. It was a place to conquer. 4 kingdoms all quarreling with each other, all soft. And over the army flew a banner the sagas say Ragnar's own daughters had woven. A raven, wings spread, that was said to know the outcome of a battle before it was fought. They went north first. And this is where the revenge in our last episode stops being a saga and starts leaving marks in the record. In November of 866, the army took York, Jorvik, the great city of Northumbria. They took it almost without a fight, because Northumbria was busy tearing itself apart. 2 kings, Alla and Osbert, at war with each other over the crown. The name Alla should sound familiar. In the sagas, Alla of Northumbria is the king who threw Ragnar into the snake pit. Whether or not that pit was ever real, this much is written down. In the spring of 867, both Northumbrian kings finally stopped fighting each other, joined forces, and attacked the Vikings inside York. They lost. Both kings died, and Alla did not die well. What the sons did to the man who was said to have killed their father became a story so dark it earned its own name, and its own telling, another day. For now, it is enough to say the debt from the snake pit was paid in full, in a city the Norse would hold for the better part of a century. The revenge was over. The conquest was just beginning. With Northumbria broken, the army turned on the rest of England like men working down a list. In 869, they came back for East Anglia, the kingdom that had bought them off with horses 4 years earlier. This time there was no deal. They caught King Edmund, and when he would not renounce his faith or rule as their puppet, they killed him. Shot through with arrows, the church would say, a martyr. East Anglia simply ceased to exist as a kingdom. Then Mercia, the great Midland power. In 874, the army drove its king, Burgred, right off the island. He fled to Rome and died there, and set a puppet on his throne. Stop and count. In 793, there had been 4 English kingdoms. Barely a decade after the Great Army landed, 3 of them were gone. Northumbria under a Norse king, East Anglia leaderless, Mercia a client state. The map of England was being erased and redrawn in a single lifetime, under a raven banner by the sons of a man who may never have existed. One kingdom was left, Wessex, the south. And one man who would not fold. The army came for it in 871, and Wessex fought back harder than anything they had met. At a place called Ashdown, a young prince named Alfred led a charge uphill into the Danish line and, against the odds, won. It did not save Wessex. There were more battles that year than the chroniclers could count, and by the end, the old king was dead, and Alfred, not yet a great man, was king of a kingdom under siege. For 7 years he held on by paying, fighting, paying again, and then, in the dead of winter after Christmas 878, the Vikings did the one thing no one paid to prevent. They attacked in the season no army was supposed to move, and nearly took Alfred in his bed at Chippenham. He escaped into the marshes of Athelney with a handful of men, a king of nothing, hiding in a swamp, while the last free kingdom in England seemed to blink out. This is the moment, not a battle, a gap. England, the whole idea of it, standing on one frightened man in a bog, it did not blink out. Through that spring, Alfred sent word out across the countryside, and to everyone's astonishment, the men of Wessex came, out of the woods, out of the hills, to a king they had every reason to think finished. In May of 878, they met the Great Heathen Army in open battle at Edington. And Alfred won. Not a skirmish, a rout that chased the Vikings back behind their own walls and starved them out. What Alfred did next is why he is remembered. He did not slaughter them. He made their war leader, Guthrum, kneel and be baptized, stood as his godfather, and then drew a line across the map. North and east of it, the Danes could keep what they had taken and live under their own law. It even had a name, the Danelaw. So the army that came to erase England did not erase it. It settled it. Those warriors put down their shields and became farmers, merchants, landlords, Norse names on English soil that are still on the map today. The conquest ended not with England destroyed, but with England and the North grafted together. Here is the strange gift the sons of Ragnar left behind. Before them there was no England, only 4 kingdoms that spent more time fighting each other than any Viking. The army that nearly destroyed them is the reason they became one. Alfred survived as the last English king, and out of that survival his heirs built a single kingdom, because the alternative had a name and a raven banner and had come within 1 winter of winning. Nations are forged against something. England was forged against this. As for the raven banner itself, the one Ragnar's daughters were said to have woven, the chronicles claim it was finally captured in 878, at the same tide the army broke. When the raven hung limp, the sons' luck ran out. But not all of them were finished, and not every debt was paid the way it was told. The darkest thing the sons of Ragnar ever did, the thing we stepped around today in a city called York, is a story that deserves the whole light on it. That one is still coming. Until then, remember that the Vikings you were taught to picture, the raiders who came and left, are not the ones who mattered most. The ones who mattered came to stay. And 1,000 years later, half of England still lives on the map they drew.